Friends, the story begins with the year 1780, when a genius scientist named Luigi Giovanni, along with his nephew Giovanni Aldini, was conducting an experiment on a dead frog's body. At that moment, as soon as they placed the iron scalpel on the frog's leg, there was a sudden rapid movement in the frog's body. This surprised Giovanni, and after conducting detailed research, he published his own theory, in which Giovanni stated that dead muscles contain a special type of vital fluid, which he named animal electricity. According to Giovanni's theory, all biological bodies, whether animals or humans, generate electric currents. In these bodies, their brain uses these electric signals to move the body parts of the organism. Now, in that case, if we can replicate those electric signals, so even with the brain being dead, we can still move body parts. But at that time, most scientists did not believe Giovanni's claims, and due to Giovanni's advancing age, he could not further advance this experiment and theory. But the command of this research was taken over by their nephew, Giovanni Aldini, and from here, another story began. On 5th December 1802, George Atkins was passing through the Paddington River in his boat when it collided with something in the water. Now, Atkins looked down into the water, and his senses were shocked because it was the corpse of a young girl. He couldn't comprehend much, so he immediately ran towards the police. The police arrived at the scene and began the task of retrieving the body from the river. But then the police discovered another dead body in the river, which belonged to a woman. Now, the surprising thing was that during the investigation, it was revealed that both of them were mother and daughter, who had gone missing just a few days ago. When George Foster was interrogated sternly, he confessed to his crime. After that, people all over London started demanding his quick execution by hanging. Now, during this time, a wealthy and influential man from London named Mr. Pass, to expedite the punishment for George Foster, a demand was made to send his case to a fast-track court, and his request was also accepting this decision. He was hanged on January 18, 1803, at Newgate Prison in London, resulting in his death. Now, several scientists had started experimenting on animal bodies, including Giovanni Aldini, who had become quite famous as a scientist in Britain. In London, many people used to call him a magician, while many others referred to him as a devil, because he used to make the faces, mouths, and limbs of many dead animals move through his experiments with the help of electricity, which would make people scared and astonished at the same time. When Aldini demanded criminal bodies for his human experiments, he obtained permission from the top officials in London himself. The person's name was George Foster. Therefore, many people were afraid of what would happen if Foster, through Aldini's experiment, were to come back to life again. And that's why the court had also stated in its order that if Foster were to come back to life again, he would be hanged once more and killed. Now, friends, let's begin Aldini's experiment. Immediately after Foster's hanging, his body is taken to Aldini's laboratory, where he invites several prominent scientists, doctors, and journalists to witness the live demonstration of the experiment. After everyone gathers in the laboratory, the experiment begins at night. George Foster's body was placed on Aldini's table, creating an atmosphere of strange fear among everyone present. But Aldini appeared quite confident. It's as if he knows what he is doing, which has further frightened people. The experiment began with the placement of 2 large electrodes, which were connected to a large battery. Aldini placed them in both ears of Foster's dead body so that the current, starting from one ear, could pass through the sections of the brain and reach the electrodes attached to the other ear. Afterwards, what happened turned this experiment into one of the most terrifying experiments in human history, because just a few seconds after the current started flowing through the electrodes, Foster suddenly opened his jaw. Now this scene was so terrifying that many people started screaming in fear. At that moment, one of Foster's eyes also opened. By this point, many people in the laboratory were frightened and started running away, including some scientists and doctors. But Aldini attempted to calm them down. some curious individuals, but remained seated there, either frozen in fear or unable to escape due to their fright. But then, something happened that maybe even Aldini himself hadn't anticipated. Because now Foster's entire body began to shake rapidly, and suddenly he started vigorously thrashing his hands and legs. It seemed as if he had come back to life and was beating his hands and legs in pain. Now, whoever saw Foster's body in such a condition started screaming in fear. At this time, Mr. Pass was also sitting among the people. This is the same Mr. Pass who had recommended expediting Foster's case and sending him to the fast-track court for quick execution. Therefore, when he saw Foster's lifeless body, moving his legs and arms so rapidly, so he became so terrified that he had an immediate heart attack and died on the spot. Everyone who was witnessing this experiment had come to believe that Aldini had actually brought Foster back to life with his experiment. But what happened next in the experiment? Did Foster truly come back to life or not? This remains a mystery even today because all the information following this was erased from records by government officials. But due to this, Aldini also drew the attention of several Christian churches. During that time, the church held a status in London equivalent to that of the court and the king, and their words were respected. And it was believed by the church that Aldini, under the guise of his scientific experiments, was summoning demonic spirits in his laboratory. And as soon as this information spread, people against Aldini's experiments. Therefore, in the end, Aldini was supposed to abandon his crazy Frankenstein experiment. So that's all for today's video hit. Like, share, and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section.